Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. And today, I think Jon Ostenson, who is our guest today, is going to make you think a little bit outside the box. Maybe Jon is a top 1% of franchise consultant nationally, and he leads a company called FranBridge Consulting as the CEO. He draws on his experience as a former Inc. 500 franchise president and multi-brand franchisee in serving his clients. He's the author of Non-Food Franchising, because I know a lot of people, when they think franchise, what springs to mind is McDonald's. We're not going to talk about McDonald's today. He is a frequent contributor on franchising for publications such as Forbes, the Franchise Journal, and others. And I'm very excited, Jon, that you're with us today. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. No, thanks for having me, Christine. I love the show and excited about our conversation.
Excellent. Me too. So, Jon, I think, first of all, let's start kind of at the beginning. Were you always like, oh, okay, I want to be a franchisor, or like I said, were you someone who also sort of thinks like a franchise? Okay, that means I got to buy a KFC or a McDonald's or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt, no, franchising was not on my radar. And if it was ever mentioned, I associate it with fast food like so many out there do. So no, we'll delve more into it, but I've kind of carved out this niche that I've dubbed non-food franchising. And what I found is there are about 95% of people out there that are interested in purchasing a franchise who want something outside of food. So why not play to the majority, which is also my background. But no, for me, starting out, did the corporate track like so many, worked to climb the ladder, and had a good run. Really enjoyed it. But, I think like so many, we have that inner entrepreneur that, we at some point scratched that itch. And for me, I didn't jump full on. Instead, I kind of sidestepped into what I'm doing now. And I went from the public company world to the private company world about 6 years ago. And for me, that private company was Shelf Genie Franchise System, which is custom pull-out shelvings for your kitchens and pantries. And I had the opportunity to go in there and support our franchise owners across North America day in, day out. And it really opened up my eyes to this world of non-food franchising, that there are other paths to business ownership that, may not be right for everyone, but for a lot of people, it's a better path. And long story short, ended up partnering with the founder of Shelf Genie. We've spun off, we've invested in franchises now on the franchisee side ourselves, as well as with other partners. And, for the most part, we've been able to put good people in place to run those businesses for us. And it allows me to do what I do now, which is the consulting and brokerage side.
So this is interesting because I think a lot of people, when they're imagining themselves as an entrepreneur, they have a very romantic sort of product, right? That they're selling some kind of I don't know, maybe a save the world kind of thing or whatever. And like when you say Shelf Genie, I mean, it's cool, right? It's a very helpful product, but it's not that romantic, right? Did you have any, initial resistance to it? Did you have already a vision in your mind of what it meant to be once you got over the McDonald's aspect of it, like, oh, franchisee, I'm going to be selling, I don't even know, like just something really like, I don't know, maybe that's a girl thing, like a flowery thing or something beautiful,
Yeah.
or,
The term I use, and you probably have a better term, but, I refer to industries as sexy or non-sexy. And it is interesting to see how those evolve over time. And, I do think the pulse in the market right now is what I've called, an attraction to non-sexy. People enjoy those understandable businesses that, may be deemed an essential service. They, in some cases, COVID resistant, Amazon resistant, they're not going to get disrupted. In some cases, recession resistant. It's things like roll off dumpsters or Serve Pro. I mean, models like that, man, you can really cash flow them, but they're not in any way romanticized. Now, I do think there are a lot of industries where we are seeing disruption within franchising, whether it be, I just mentioned the waste removal space. I mean, we have some patented technologies with some of our, franchisors we represent. And so a lot of times you are bringing a disruption, a white collar approach to a blue collar industry. Mm-hmm. But no, we're still working with what I would deem, kind of neat businesses too, whether it be IV drips or, fitness that's driven by technology for those 50 and above that don't like the big box gym. And so I can just give different examples or case studies, as we go through here. But, there are a lot of industries that I'd say where the pull is right now is really understandable businesses that cash flow. They're somewhat risk averse. In a lot of cases, don't require a lease. Some people are opposed to having a lease and signing that agreement, putting a personal guarantee on the line. And they like the idea of being able to work remote. So a lot of businesses lend itself to that as well.
So are you seeing, what you just brought up made me think are you seeing a lot of change? Because there are companies that are now franchises that were traditionally just mom and pop sort of things. You never thought about, I don't know, I'm at a loss right now to just come up off the top of my head with a business, but a lot of things where you just never thought of it as being a franchise. And then suddenly you go into the next town, you're like, oh, they have one of these too. Is that more of a newer phenomenon, or was they just not aware of it before?
I think a lot of times people aren't aware. I was talking with someone yesterday, and he said, "I never knew that was a franchise or that." And it's Meineke, it's Midas, in the automotive space, or it's, obviously most hotels are franchises. We don't do a lot with hotels, but no, a lot of the businesses, whether it be home and property services, whether it be health and wellness and fitness. A lot of franchises catering to other categories like kids or pets, education, the aging population. Those are all, wherever you see those macro factors. I always say that people will spend on their homes, on their health, on their kids and their pets. So any businesses that touch those got a pretty good shot. Of course, there's a competitive landscape, but no, we're seeing a lot of interest across the board, but I think more and more so in the services space, where you can ramp up and kind of scale as you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the advantage. So today, how do you help people to get started with this? If somebody decides, okay, yeah, this sounds like a cool thing. How do you kind of steer them in the right direction and consult with them?
Yeah. So, first off, I'd say our service is entirely free. So happy to jump on a call with, any of your listeners if you like this may be a path they want to explore. It's a great model. We never get compensated by our clients, and we get paid by the franchisors on the back end. It's almost like an executive search, or in your case, you would really relate to the fact it's like a real estate brokerage. When a deal gets done, we get paid, and that's by the franchisor. For them, it's a sales and marketing expense. It doesn't get passed on to our clients in any form or fashion. So I always like to get that out of the way up front. But no, it depends on where someone is in the process and in the journey. I'd say as a first step, happy to share some resources. I would encourage them to sign up for our monthly newsletter. We pack it with some great content every month. But then if there is genuine interest, let's jump on a 10 or 15-minute call. Just have an intro call. Let me get to know you a little bit better, ask some questions. And then what we'll do is typically about a week later, I'll bring you opportunities that are available in your market that match what we discussed, that could be a good fit for you, whether you're looking to jump in full-time or part-time. But opportunities I also see resonating with others all around the country with backgrounds similar to yours. And so it's fun for me, Christine, because I'd say 80 to 90% of my clients end up in opportunities that they never saw themselves in. So after we review 7 or 8 opportunities together, they said, wow, I never really quite thought of that. Let me dig a little bit deeper, and we get them plugged in with the franchisors for some conversations. And I could just I just had a Wall Street attorney buy a gutter business last week. Had up outside of Boston, right outside of your neck of the woods. No industry experience, and franchisors like that. They like people that are good with people, that maybe you've managed a team before, or you've got some sales background, or you can understand a P&L. Just some of those blocking and tackling industry transferable skills. But they'd almost rather you not have a background in the industry that you're coming into.
You can rethink it, right?
Exactly, not bring that baggage, bring a different point of view. So
definitely,
so it really opens up the array of opportunities.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. What I think would be a great skill is like customer service. If you really just want the customer to have a great experience, no matter what that is. I was thinking, when there's so many times I'm on a website, I'm like, these people just do not care about the customer experience. And that makes an opportunity, right? For someone like, if you think about the taxi cab space, right? All of a sudden there's Uber, because they rethought. They're like, I get these crappy, grumpy taxis and these filthy, machines. I want a way to rate people. I want to be able to feel safer. I want to, you know what I mean? And somebody just like rethought it all. And now it's this huge industry, and we don't, it's because somebody questioned, isn't there a better way to serve the customer here? Right. And that's right.
100%.
Yeah. So Jon, what are you looking at? Like when you chat with somebody and they think you come up with a match or whatever, I mean, what kind of capital are they having to bring to the table in order to get involved in a even just a part-time type of franchise opportunity?
Yeah. I'd say on the lower end, our deal size, we have some opportunities out there that we placed clients in this past year. They're as low as $70,000. Then we have some that obviously, scale up a good bit north of that, but probably 80% of our deals fall between 100,000 and 300,000. So that's kind of a good ballpark. And that could be a wide array of different industries. Obviously there are a lot of different factors that go into it, but when I talk about investment, what I'm talking about is, every franchise system has what's called an FDD, a franchise disclosure document. It's got 23 different items. One of the items in there talks about the financial returns you can expect as a result. What's the average of other franchise owners in the system? One of them is the item 7, and that's where it talks about your all-in investment. And it's always given as a range. It would include your franchise fee, if it's a retail location, any build out cost, if it's a service-based business, maybe equipment or vehicles. And then they usually include startup cost in 3 months of working capital. So what are your marketing costs, personnel costs? And so all that's built in to really give you, a good view coming into the business. And so that's what I quote with those numbers. Now, Christine, as you probably know, there are different ways to fund the franchise. Some are funding it out of pocket. Others are using SBA loans. Those are very, very common. Either an SBA Express loan, usually for 150 or below, or an SBA 7A loan, which are usually north of 200. And they're geared to different types of businesses as well. I have some clients that are using retirement funds where they're self-directing their IRA or 401k. There's a program called a ROBS plan that allows them to essentially tap into their retirement to purchase the business with their retirement funds. There's also another option for those that have built up their brokerage accounts to be able to borrow against their brokerage accounts. It's something I personally do because of where interest rates are right now. It's a no-brainer, but where you're able to, borrow and leverage at a very low rate. And then others use a HELOC, home equity line of credit. So there are a lot of ways to fund it. And then some bring in investors. I'm raising money right now for a client in Seattle that's buying a painting business. It's got some neat attributes about it. Another client, I mentioned the dumpster business. He's done great, just bought it back in the fall, and now he's looking to expand, and he's raising some significant capital behind that one. So, it comes in all forms and sizes. And, some of the things I ask my clients, let's talk about your background. Let's understand, are you looking to go full-time or what we call semi-absentee? I'd say about half of my clients are looking to make the jump from the corporate world and go into what we call owner-operator, running it full-time. Others say, hey, I'd much rather be semi-absentee or semi-passive or this executive model, which a lot of businesses lend themselves to, where you put a general manager in place and you're a little less hands-off. You keep the day job running on the side. So, that's a key component. Some people are open-minded. Others like the idea of a retail-based business. Some like, service-based, non-retail. We talk about the financial piece. We talk about large teams, small teams, B2B, B2C, just a number of different things. We talk through examples to really kind of cut down and peel back the onion.
Yeah, excellent. So what are some of the advantages? Like, let's say that I've always had a dream to create a specific type of, let's say I always wanted to have my own dumpster business. What are the advantages to me of going into an existing franchise versus, maybe like, because, and getting into it on my own and just whatever, however you go about, I guess I'm showing my ignorance about the dumpster business, but however you go about starting, that might not have been the best example.
Yeah, no, that's a great question with any industry or business, and I'll start out by saying franchising is not right for everyone. I'm a member of the entrepreneurs organization. I get a lot of people approaching me from that group, but they're extremely entrepreneurial. And some of them have to say, hey, you're too entrepreneurial. You couldn't stay within the lines. In turn, some of them say, hey, I've been there, I've done that. I would much rather buy into something that's a proven system and I'll follow the directions. So I'd say, from an advantage standpoint, you're getting a playbook. There's a product market fit already established. On day one, you're working towards profitability, not trying to figure out, can this be profitable? Right. Secondly, you've got a coach on the sidelines in that franchisor. The better you do, the better they do. Any good franchisor, you're going to have very aligned interest. And that partnership's important. We vet it very carefully ahead of time. Third, you've got other franchisees in other markets that, there's this shared knowledge, they're testing marketing vehicles. You're figuring out the best place to find good labor. You're trading those notes with each other, best practices. Also, people oftentimes overlook the fact, when you own a business or a franchise, you're building cash flow. You're also building an asset that's going to have exit potential. You're also able to write off expenses that you couldn't as a W-2 employee. So it's kind of a trifecta, as I call it. But upon that exit, this is really interesting. There was a study done recently. They looked at 2,000 businesses across a wide variety of industries that had exits over a 10-year period. Half were franchised, half non-franchised. They compared apples to apples industry-wise. They found that franchise businesses trade at an exit multiple 1.5 times non-franchised. And so that resale value to the potential buyer, there's the value in that franchise system. So, I'd say those are just a couple of the reasons, that come to mind. But again, not right for everyone, but I'd say for the majority of people, it is a better path to business ownership.
So if you're someone who does not take instruction well, right? If you have trouble playing with others, maybe you're not really cut out, because that's what it is right there. I mean, I've not ever really explored this. So they're giving you quite a bit of guidance, right? I mean, this is how I know a little bit about like McDonald's, like this is how thin you have to cut the tomatoes type of thing, right? That's very, very specific. Are all companies, are all franchises that detailed, oriented about how you're going to run the business?
Yeah, every franchisor, I mean, they're a business person. They've built a business. They've decided to scale through franchising. It's their baby, but getting to know that franchisor up front and understanding what are the guardrails, and I'll start by saying, when I was at Shelf Genie, I looked across our sea of franchise owners in North America. Our top performers inevitably were those that followed the system to a T. And that sounds cliche, but it is so true. And, that's what you're doing. You're buying into a franchise system because it's a proven model. Now, most good franchisors will allow you to test things, hey, let's go test that. Yeah, let's add some innovation. If it works for you, introduce it to the whole system. So, those are the ones you want to partner with that aren't too rigid. They make recommendations, but maybe they let you do the marketing at the local level organically yourself, and they'll provide you with the assets. They'll arm you, you're in business for yourself, not by yourself, but they should be there supporting you versus, telling you exactly what to do, is my opinion.
So how similar is being a franchisee to being an employee, essentially like a regional manager type of thing? Are you reporting up for your numbers and things like that? Are there any sort of things like sales targets and that sort of thing?
Not sales targets. I mean, there's definitely, and this is actually an advantage. You're seeing how your peer group is doing, and that should make you want to do better. And a lot of times there are leaderboards, and you are able to see how other markets are doing. So you can kind of tap into those competitive juices and kind of know, hey, am I doing well? Oh, that's great. Or no, let me figure out where I can improve upon and how do I catch up. So I think it's a very healthy competition in most franchise systems. But no, it's definitely, you'll hear people say you're buying a job. Well, again, you're building an asset, you're building your own empire that you'll potentially be able to sell. Nothing's easy. It's hard work. I make sure my clients know that if they think a semi-absentee opportunity is going to be 15 hours a week early on, it's probably going to be 20. You've got to find the right people early on, put them in place. And until you find the right people, you're going to be involved in the business. But there is that potential there. And again, there are guardrails, but it shouldn't be too rigid. You want that freedom of business ownership. That's why you're doing this. That's why you're not taking another job. And some people say, well, isn't that risky? Of course, franchising de-risk it considerably when you look at the numbers versus a startup, right. But I'd say working for someone else is pretty risky too.
Yeah. I mean, this idea of risk, what's not risky, right? I mean, my cousin, I like to use her as an example because she's the unhappiest employee I've ever met. She works for the IRS. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that. She works for a large government organization. And she is so incredibly unhappy. And I said to her, why don't you just do something else? Like what? I mean, I'm seeing her getting less and less healthy, less and less happy. What? She looks older than I am, and she's probably 12, 15 years younger. And I'm saying, why don't you find something that fires you up? She says, oh, I only have 10 more years till retirement. I'm like, 10 years? You know how long 10 years? That could be your last 10 years. It could be your last 8 years on the earth. Why do you want to waste it being so miserable? So to me, like, risky is getting up every day and hating your life. You know what I mean? Yeah. Hating your world, hating your,
I am there with you. And I think COVID's caused a lot of people to wake up to that. Not everybody, but a lot of people, hence the great resignation. And some people
Exactly.
are jumping jobs. Some people are, taking a time out, but we've never been so busy. Our deals this year, year to date, doubled last year and doubled the previous year, even during COVID. I mean, COVID caused a lot of upheaval and a lot of people to question the path they're on.
Which is a good thing. I think that's always a good thing.
As Americans, we should feel very good. The entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well. I see it firsthand all day, every day with my clients.
Yeah. So John, let me ask you, you're talking a little bit about the absentee person who's maybe going to spend 15 or 20 hours there. And what popped into my mind, and maybe this is just also a self-starter mode that I'm just not able to break out of, but I would think in order to really know that you're hiring the right person, you would want to be able to do the job. Yeah. I mean, I feel that way when I hire contractors because I do a lot of, DIY kind of things. And if I don't know what the job is, if I have no idea what's involved in it, then, they could tell me it's going to take 40 hours and maybe it's only going to take 4. You know what I mean? I feel like I have to, if not have done the job, I have to really know a lot about it. But does the franchise kind of cut that away so that you already can know who the right person is for that role?
It definitely shortcuts it. You'll go through the franchisor training. I mean, you'll know more than enough to be dangerous. Of course, the ideal situation is that you get out there, you run some of these sales appointments, or you manage the location. The more hands-on, certainly the better, and you're going to hire better, you're going to manage better. So no, I totally agree with that. Yeah. It is interesting. Here's the different approaches I see. I see clients that want to keep a day job, get something going on the side that they can eventually build up and step into. I see others say, hey, I want to get something going. I'll do it full time, but then I want to be able to step away and put someone in place. I mean, that's an ideal situation. Yeah. But literally, I have clients falling on both sides of that spectrum. And, it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, there's so much cash on the sidelines right now with the stock market up here. Interest rates are low. Only so many good real estate deals. We're people, it's a first world problem, but these are conversations we're having. People are saying, where do we invest?
Right.
And they're starting to wake up this alternative asset of small business ownership or franchising.
It's a great opportunity. Now, John, I'm thinking about the people who are just saying, oh, I'm going to dabble in it. I'm going to just do this part-time until I can afford to step away from my job. Yeah. Do you think if they did it full-time that they wouldn't need their job? Do you know what I mean? I'm saying, is there like a difference order of magnitude wise if you are doing it yourself full-time versus if you're just going to say, oh, I'm going to dabble? I mean, there's first the expense of the manager. And then are there other sort of costs associated with that? I mean, I know this is more of a philosophical question. You don't have to answer it because you won't alienate half your people.
I mean, I think you're exactly right. And of course, everyone's situation is differently. And, whether they're getting medical benefits, through work or whether their spouse is working. I mean, everyone's situation is so different. Ideally, the more time they're able to invest, the better. And I make sure that my clients know there's no thing as a true passive opportunity unless we structure it very uniquely and someone else truly is that operating partner. But I mean, we're at a point, like I've got a driveway business. We don't even have to market it because there's so much demand in the market. They just find our website, they see our truck driving around town. I mean, it's been beautiful. I literally jump on a call for an hour a week with our general manager. And now we were very fortunate to find that general manager. Right. I've got a client of mine who's the largest franchisee of 2 Men in a Truck, operates in 10 markets. It's a moving service, $30 million business. Well, he and I did a couple of deals together last year where in each case, he bought another franchise and, he's got his hands full, he's busy, but he bought a franchise oftentimes in a different city and put a young GM over that business. But it was someone that he sourced through his church or through the community that he knew and trusted. Yeah. And he actually gave them some equity. And in each case, he's come back and bought additional locations within the first year. I mean, he's just had great success. And I'm starting to use him to coach my clients. He's not cheap, but I fund a couple of calls with him to get my clients set up well so they know where to find a GM, how to incentivize and align the interest, really set them up for success.
That's, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier that is reminding me of this conversation because that person is in an abundance kind of a mindset, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, I want you to love the business as much as I am. So I'm going to give you a piece of it, as opposed to saying, oh, I need to hang on to all this and I need to just find somebody that I can pay as little as possible. Right. It's a very different philosophy, a very different mindset going into it.
I love that. My business partner a couple of years ago said, I'd rather give away a larger piece. I'd rather have a smaller piece of a bigger nut than a larger piece of a smaller nut. You know, again, creating those incentives to go build it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's one thing that surprised you when you first got into this field, this franchising field?
the psychology around all of it is just so unique, because here you've got these business owners, and it's true of any small business owner, but you know, there's some inherent fear there, because yes, they're a business, they're spending money on behalf of the business, but still coming out of their own pockets. So it's this weird business to consumer type model. But you know, it's mindset. Are they willing to invest in marketing? Are they willing to invest in an employee before the revenue is there to justify the employee? And so I love kind of seeing the thinking and talking with my clients. And one of the things I love about franchising is how eyes wide open you go into the decision. You know, we have a process aligned where, you know, there's multiple steps with the franchisor. I'm holding my client's hand through the process, but they get to talk to other franchise owners within the system. They get to hear about their experience. You get those data points, you get the item 19 and the whole FDD, where you get a whole readout on the business.
Yeah.
You get some good FaceTime with the franchisor. You get to spend time with them at their location, you know, at corporate, meet the teams. You really get to so much more information versus just a pro forma on the back of the napkin, like a lot of startups. So I love that. I mean, if franchising is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, the goal is that people are eyes wide open and make the right decision for them.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage compared to like saying, okay, I want to open my own pizza joint. You know what I mean? Like where you're literally going into everything with just a leap of faith. It's sort of like a halfway point between jumping off the bridge and just staying in your car, right? There's some kind of a halfway point. What's your first, when people first contact you, what kind of things do they typically, I mean, is there any similarity between the kind of conversations that you have with people when they are very first imagining doing this?
100%.
How do they find you, first of all?
100%. Well, you can come out to our website, FranBridge Consulting, but no, I get out there again. Non-food franchising, it resonates, but people don't know to look for it sometimes. And so, we've been very fortunate that all of our clients, tend to seek us out through referrals, or they've heard us speak somewhere. And so we haven't had any trouble finding people that are interested in business ownership. It's really just helping them understand, is this the right fit for them or not? I have to mention this, and this is just an example. We launched a partnership today. We work with a couple hundred franchise brands. We launched a partnership with a fence company today. These are the most amazing returns on investment I've ever seen. And this isn't indicative of all models, but let me just share with you. They have 40 franchise owners. We're getting ready to expand them across North America in a bigger way. Across those 40 owners, average first year revenue, 1.8 million.
Wow.
Average second year revenue, 2.8. Wow. And in the third year, quite a few franchise owners are doing a good bit north of that. And this is an investment you can get in for 200,000 or maybe even a tick below. And they've got national partnerships with Home Depot and others. It is across 40 different owners. That is their average, and they're dropping a good bit of that to the bottom line. And so there is the potential to go big. Some people do try to hang on to the day job. I mean, I've got multiple clients that tried to hang on to the day job, and they said, I'm never going to maximize the business unless I jump in, let's go. But it's an evolution. Everyone's situation is so different. But it's fun because we just had a PhD buy into at the University of Arkansas, buy into a fitness franchise. We had a Silicon Valley executive out in California buy a property management franchise. Actually, we had on the commercial side, on the residential side, we had a real estate brokerage owner here in Atlanta buy into a property management franchise recently. So sometimes you see businesses that complement what they're currently doing. Oftentimes they're totally different industries than what they've ever been in. It almost gives them a second career, and they really enjoyed kind of that boost of energy and learning something new. And so it's fun. I love what I get to do and playing matchmaker.
Jon, how do you find the franchises, like the people who maybe have a company that they are ready to ramp up and they want to start offering franchise opportunities for people? Do they come to you as well?
They do. And so again, totally pro bono. I love having those conversations, helping them out. We don't personally take companies through the franchising process, but I've got a couple of great resources that I introduce them to. But I share with them, and we do see, gosh, so many companies. We just had a chiropractic clinic Friday signed to franchise their business. A lot of businesses across a lot of industries are considering franchising as a way to scale because you're using other people's money. You always want employees to act as owners. Now you have people with skin in the game that know their local market, and private equity loves franchising. If you Google acquisitions, franchises, so many acquisitions taking place right now because private equity loves the whole franchise model. So, we do see a lot of companies franchising, probably more than at any time in the past. And so, no, always more than happy to talk with anyone's considering. And I'll tell you the good, the bad, and I've been a franchisor. There's a lot of positives, but you'll also wake up one day and realize you got kids across the country that you have expectations of you, and you got to keep the kids playing nice. So it will change your day to day, and there's some best practices around how you set yourself up for success.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. Interesting. And I had a good question that popped into my head, and now it's gone, but it'll be back. I hate when that happens. I should take notes while I'm thinking of things.
Happens to me all the time.
Oh gosh. So anyway, let's just leave that. So Jon, when you are, is there a sort of, are there ever people who come to you and you just know that they're going to be great or that they're not going to be that great? I mean, is there a personality style? Is there any sort of similarity between people who are going to succeed in this business?
Yeah, and I look back again, just because when I was at Shelf Genie, I had the perspective of looking at a lot of different owners. I saw who was at the top and who was the middle of the pack and who were lagging a little behind. And again, it's people that could follow the system. It's also people that enjoy working with people. I mean, if you've never hired anyone in your life, if you've never had to make a tough call, when needed, I'd say that some of our franchise owners would hang on to people for too long, and they didn't have the guts or the courage to fire them because maybe that person now knows more about the business than they do. So, those were some of the things. But, Christine, and this is the fun part, people surprise me all the time. I catch myself saying, oh, we had a client purchase a business yesterday, did 3 territories here in Atlanta on a business. I don't think he was going to move forward. Then I have other clients where it's a done deal. They've been through discovery day multiple times already this year. And then it's like, wow, I think people get cold feet sometimes. Some will climb the ladder up to the diving board. Some will jump off, and then some just kind of look down and start finding excuses and reasons not to. And and there's never a good time to buy a business. What I find is, my clients, I tell them, hey, if you're also looking at other jobs while we're looking at franchises, you'll end up getting several job offers. It just happens. It bodes well. I think, hey, I'm a big believer that activity breeds activity. And when you start moving in a direction, other opportunities present themselves.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So it sounds like it's easy compared to other industries, perhaps, that you want to break into, that it's a little easier to find the money if this is something that private equity is kind of enamored of.
Yeah, and I'd say private equity is largely at the franchisor level. They're buying franchisors, the brand. Sometimes they will. I mean, we saw with Orange Theory, we've seen it with Pods, other franchises where they'll come in and scoop up a large number of franchisees and provide them with that exit. So, I'd say on the funding side, more so around that. But then, half of my clients use SBA loans, very common. So if you're taking an SBA loan out for $125,000, you're probably putting in 25, 30,000, and then you're taking the loan, which you can pay back early. But, banks do prefer franchises, versus non-franchises, just because it's much more predictable. So we work with some great franchise friendly lenders, that know our brands and, provide loans to our clients on a regular basis.
Is what you're doing somewhat unique, being kind of a franchise broker, if you will, or is that the job that I just never knew about?
Yeah, no, there are quite a few folks that do it. I've been fortunate again. I mean, we do a lot of deals, a lot of placements. We're associated with the largest brokerage here in the U.S., and so that does provide us access to all the different development groups around the country. And we've really gone deep in getting to know these franchisors. And having been a former franchisor, you can kind of relate. But no, it's it's those relationships. And for our clients, when we vet franchises, we're looking at the leadership team. That is so important. And if they have industry experience and they're newer, we want them to also bring in some franchise experience, to round it out. It's the profit model, it's the niche they operate in, the competitive landscape, the market that we're looking to place our client in. So, there are a lot of different factors that go into it, but it all starts with the right people at the top.
Yeah. So John, what are some of the more unique franchise opportunities that people might not have thought of or heard of or considered?
Wow. There's my mind immediately goes to one, and I feel like we've talked a lot about kind of the dumpster space. So let me give one example there, and then I'll give you another industry. But there's a truck with a big old crane arm on the back, and it goes up to a roll-off dumpster, rolls back and forth for 5 or 6 minutes, smashes down the waste to 1/4 of the original size. You end up saving 3 out of 4 trips to the landfill. I mean, it's a beautiful business model, a few employees, great profit margins. So that would be one that you would never think of. I just had a client buy into a business coaching franchise started by Brian Tracy and some others, and they arm you. If you want to be a business coach, they give you all the assessments and the curriculum and all the tools you'll need, so you don't have to recreate the wheel. So a client of mine is an engineer up in Indianapolis, bought into that one. Had a client recently, more than half of my clients are in the real estate space, whether that's their main career or they're just real estate investing. We just had a client that bought into a renovation business where he's got a team of 3D designers behind him now at the home office. And he goes in, he's kind of on the sales and marketing side, and then he sources it with the vendors. And he's killing it up there in Charlotte, really young guy. I mentioned property management. Home services are definitely, there hasn't been any hotter area the last 2 years. People have gravitated there, and whether it be gutters, whether it be pool cleaning, recurring revenue type services like that. I mentioned the fencing. There's just a lot of niches. Insulation, $52 billion B2C, B2B industry. We helped one brand grow from 5 locations to 250 locations in 18 months. We saw Harvard MBAs buy into a insulation business, and the numbers were great, and that's what attracted people to it. So it's businesses like that where if you put your business owner hat on and you say, hey, there's a white space here from it's a fractional industry, we can go in and with the brand and with the technology, we'll answer the phones when people call. It's just sometimes it's blocking and tackling.
Yeah Interesting. John, this has been really cool. Our time is just like evaporating, but what kinds of things did I fail to touch on, like things that are important or interesting that you want to share that I didn't really, wasn't educated enough to ask?
Gosh, Christine, you would never know that you didn't have a background in franchising. Those were great questions. I think we covered a lot of ground. I would just say that, I think if you're considering business ownership, if you're considering alternative investments, there are just a lot of different models. There's 4,000 franchise brands in the US. Roughly half of those are non-food, non-lodging. And they're incredibly popular, but again, they're not top of mind for a lot of people until they start digging in. Then everything is a franchise that they see. But and no, it's a great process. The biggest thing that we're up against right now is it's very competitive in markets. I'm always positioning my clients against other candidates that want the same brand and the same market. So there's always this urgency to it. So, I would definitely encourage people to move fast. We're always trying to get on the franchisor's radar as fast as we can. And you can drop out at any point, but it's a good idea to at least get your place in line. So that's a dynamic we're up against right now. Great resignations leading to
I never thought about that aspect of it, but right. It's very location specific. You can't have 10 people in the same franchise in the same area. So.
Right.
Interesting. Cool. So John, if people are, I think you've definitely piqued some people's interest here. How should they reach out to you? How should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'd say as a first step, come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com, sign up for our newsletter. We pack some great content every month. So that might be a way to just kind of dip your toe in the water. Happy to share some resources with you to kind of keep the conversation going. Like I said, more than happy to jump on a call as well. So if you sign up for our newsletter, I'll ping you, see if there's interest in jumping on a call. And then connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook. LinkedIn is definitely our largest platform, but we post out there daily and share what I believe to be some pretty good content.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds great. And I'll, of course, put all those links into the show notes. So if you're driving or something, don't worry, you don't have to get in an accident. We're going to have all that available to you. Anything else in parting, John, that you'd like to share?
I think that's it. No, really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And if I can be of use or help to anyone, more than happy to.
Yeah, you've been fantastic, John. I mean, it's kind of a fun, eye-opening conversation. I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, happy to come back anytime. And thanks again for having me.
Thank you. And thank you, listener, for listening. I know you have a choice of about 2 million podcasts. So I'm very grateful that you're here sharing time with John and I today. I know that he's opened your eyes, and I bet if you think about it, you can think of somebody else who would at least like to have a conversation with John, or, maybe just get the newsletter and just kind of like, you know, try it out a little, play around a little and see what it's all about. So share this episode with them and allow John to open their eyes as well. And have a wonderful week. We'll see you here next week. Yes.